ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamala Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Om Hiranmaya Parikoshe Virajan Brahmaniskalam Tachu Brahm Jyotisham Jyoti Tadyadatma Vito Viduhu. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Shining like burnished gold, highest and deepest, the core intelligence of living beings, partless and indivisible, pure and free of all taint, the divine energy flowing through everything, the essence of all, which all beings seek, either knowingly or unknowingly. There shines Brahman. It is that which the wise ones exult in, and it is that which the Guru teaches. Om peace, peace, peace. Om apyayantu mamangani vak pranaschakshuhu shrotamatra balamindriyani cha sarvani sarvam brahmau panishadam mahabrahma nirakuryam mama brahma Nirakaroda Nirakara Namastva Nirakaranam Meastu Tadatmani Nirate Ya Upanishatsu Dharmaste Mayi Shantu Te Mayi Shantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May our bodies experience health. May our life force flow unimpeded. May our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman. For the Upanishads, the scriptures of India state that all existence is Brahman. Therefore, may we never deny Brahman, and may Brahman never deny us. May there be no rejection of Brahman ever by us, we who are dedicated to the realization of the Atman within. May all the divine qualities cited in the Upanishads also reside within us. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishovahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the teachings, or with the world. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. And may peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Today we meet here at SRV Hawaii, on the Big Island, And we are entering into the second in a series of 5 classes on food, prana, and sadhana. 2 of those words may be a little bit alien to some viewers or to people who haven't frequented spiritual circles or kept up or maintained a spiritual practice. Even in religious circles and philosophical circles, they might not be understood very well here in the West, but we know what food is for sure. That's annam in Sanskrit. But we also know that this word prana is a sort of missing link in our ideology, according to Swami Vivekananda when he came in 1893, seeing that we didn't know a lot about the power that animated us, or we had some semblance of an idea about it or some vague ideas about it, but we weren't really connecting it inward. And so that was part of the reason why we were living only in external life. Like Christ saying you need an internal life or an eternal life to the fishermen along the river, because they were existing on the prana that flowed in the river and that dwelled in the fish they ate, and that was there in their wife and children, and was there in the land, and was powering their thoughts, and it also took them into dream and deep sleep at night, that very self-same energy called prana. So it provides many, many functions for us, and needs to be acknowledged first here in our Western contemporary world. And then after that we can begin to control it and direct it. This is the part of this new chart that covers this whole 5-class series, is basically our main guide chart that we'll get to. Maybe I'll take you through the whole thing in one fell swoop, or as we say, one fell swarupa in Sanskrit. Today, before we get into putting a period or an exclamation point, if you will, on the subject of food and getting into the teachings on prana deeper. So the third word is sadhana, and that's very rare to see anyone in the Western Hemisphere doing sadhana. There's some prayer maybe and some asana going on and some other forms of lightweight practices, but deep sadhana has to do more with the 4 yogas. That is, and I will have a new chart on that next week to show you, based in Holy Mother's teachings. Sri Sharda Devi, who is our Ishta Devi here in this ashram. My teacher's teacher was Sri Sharda Devi, which was Sri Ramakrishna's divine consort and spiritual wife, that lived well into the 1920s, I think, and began to show us the divinity of womanhood. And Sri Ramakrishna left her behind for that purpose, among other purposes. So she tells us how to do sadhana along the course of these 4 yogas. In fact, 2 of her yogas, which have been brought forth in this age, that is in the 1900s when she was here amongst us in the body, are called Mano Buddhi Yoga and Jnanodaya Yoga. These are ways in which she used to teach. That is, Mano Buddhi Yoga is putting together the mind and the intellect, so they have to make a connection there. And then Jnanodaya puts together wisdom with compassion. And some of the hallmarks of Jnanodaya Yoga, for instance, are the greatest compassion you can do for others is calm your own distracted mind. That starts the first pillar of Jnanodaya Yoga, you might say, is to have compassion to yourself and calm that distracted mind. Be at peace all the time. You're much better in life and in action when you proceed with a sattvic mind, not a rajasic or tamasic mind. So teachings like that used to proceed from her. She would accent them, and they were very simple teachings, but the kind of teachings that were very profound in that they cut through a lot of the surface noise that's there in the mind, and the chaos that sometimes overcomes the mind. Erratic, frenetic energy. That's prana unrefined. So sadhana and prana then will have this very intrinsic connection where if your energy is refined and smoothed out, then your mind will follow suit. It's actually not the way the seers do it. Their mind is peaceful first, and then they calm the energy and use the energy. But the way most of us are proceeding towards enlightenment or towards self-realization, realization of the Atman, as we were just chanting in this beautiful peace chant at the beginning of class, is that we proceed through physical to the prana, and from the prana to the mind to the intellect, and intellect to the ego. We finally get to this fifth sheath, or this fifth casing inside of us, which is very subtle, which has given rise to the sense of individual I, the sense of I-ness, or the separate I maker. Lord Vashishta used to call it the ego, the separate I maker. Some tendency in there that takes a little bit of the essence out of the ocean and encapsulates it in a jar. See, so it's the same water in the jar as in the ocean, but there's this separate sense of separateness that's there that is a subtle problem in spiritual life until you can refine it. So all of this then depends upon sadhana, spiritual practice, to uncover some of these secrets. There might as well be mysteries or of a very esoteric nature until you begin to awaken your prana. And for most of us then, like I say, it will begin in the physical. And as far as the scriptures of India are concerned, all of this is food. The whole thing, Brahman is food, even all the way up to the highest level. So we're going to have to maybe change our perspective, our mental asana, as I've been saying lately. A new book out of SRV, which is going to be released in about a month. It was just sent to print yesterday. It's called Manasana, the superlative art of mental posture. So we have these asanas that we must apply to the mind, or assume in the mind. So, and then that will right the boat. See, we should keep the boat in the water, but never let water get in the boat. So some of our boats are beginning to capsize, even. And we're spending too much time bailing to stay alive. We need to have a ready supply of prana flowing through us all the time. And so food is going to be something we need to change our mental posture about. Somebody, after I gave last week's class, and there was a lot of good feedback here in our Sangha and from other quarters about it, I heard in the stretch of people responding to that, saying that their energy returned to them this week. They started thinking about food, and they realized that they had been drinking too much coffee at work and eating too many sweets, and sort of going for a kind of habitual buzz that the West is so famous for, you see, in the busy workplace and so forth. So they decided to do a fast and just eat pure and X those things out of the equation. And then I heard my energy came back, my prana came back. I feel good again. I don't feel edgy and on edge all the time and nervous and lackadaisical without anything to shore me up, you see. We wake up and go to sleep with this prana flowing through you. So it's easy to lose track of prana because it is such a subtle energy, and we're so used to, when we're young, having it flow in us. Even when we're young, maybe it has its lapses. That's the real reason why prana is not Brahman. Brahman is pure consciousness. Prana is an energy that moves and flows and ebbs. See? So it cannot, since it changes like that, it cannot be called Brahman. It's equated with Brahman and the realization of Brahman, but it's not the actual non-dual essence of a thing. See, the Swarupa, as we were just saying. So since it does ebb and flow, we have to make it flow, which is why I just chanted Om Apyantu Mamangani Vak Pranas Chakshu. Chakshu, how to see, and prana, the energy that makes our eyes see, and it makes our ears hear. Eyes can't see by themselves. There has to be an energy flowing. They say if you cut the optic nerve, the eyes are still open, but it's not seeing anymore because there's no energy flowing along the nerve channel. Well, that's the same is true of your subtle nerves. Inside of those gross nerves, there are 100,000 subtle nerves, they say, that are conducting prana and causing, and connected, hopefully, consciously that is, back to your mind. Eyes to the mind, that is, the five senses have to go back to the fivefold mind. And fivefold mind is chitta, thought, so your thought will be more vibrant. And it's ahamkara, your ego. Your ego will be under your control, more refined. And it's buddhi, your intellect. Your intellect will be able to work and function properly for you and transmit more of these teachings that I'm giving out, for instance, that the teachers give out. I'll be able to understand them better, and I'll be able to take them in I'll be more capacious, wider, be able to take in more and digest. We know this posture is necessary for that, some sort of a straight spine posture, and we also know that breathing is also responsible for that. It's one of the things that can help us get our prana flowing again is to breathe. But even prior to breathing is pure food. So this is my preamble today. As I usually give some sort of 10 or 15 minute introduction to these subjects every class, so it kind of warms us up to the subject, because they're not things that you readily think about all the time in today's culture and day and time. You have to, I mean, if you did have your prana under your control all the time, you would be thinking about them. You'd consider it marvelous, or you'd be a good witness of how your energy ebbs and flows. And then you'd see where it ebbs, and you'd find out that there's a block there, and you'd remove that block, and it would flow all the time. That block is called a granthi in Sanskrit. It's a knot. There are knots in these nerves, just like there can be knots in your muscles or in other parts of your body, and your arm can atrophy and so forth. You're not enough oxygen getting to your brain and so forth. You see, they can't reach their brain because of that. So you need to have this flow all the time. We know just very basic physical hatha yoga exercises can get some of that prana moving on the physical level, but the purpose of this class is not just to make you a happy animal, because the human being is not an animal. The human being is a soul, is an atman. Its essence is pure conscious awareness, timeless and deathless. And when it comes into the physical form, it takes a risk, it takes a chance at developing lots of these blocks, these granthis, these knots. And sometimes so much so that then this is the problem of what Buddha called samsara, or the color chakra, is that you become so impeded in your intelligence and in your thinking process that you're not thinking outside the box anymore. You begin to think only in terms of the physical. And your prana isn't connected back to your dreams. You have five senses out here, and you have five subtle senses in your dream. And if you went to sleep tonight and you had dreams and you woke up in the morning and sat to meditate, then you could connect a series of your dreams. You see, they want you to do that. It's one of the methods of realization in yoga. In the eight-limbed yoga is that one of the techniques is to take your dreams apart and concentrate on them by sequence. But if you had your prana flowing, then you could remember the sequence that led into a certain sequence, and the sequence before that, and the sequence before that, and you begin to make your dreams luminous. You see, and not for purpose of just enjoying dream life, because this is what we're doing here. This is dream number 2, you see, and dream number 1 is tonight in sleep. We've come out here into this dream world. We have to awaken from the awakening state too. See, we have to awaken and be fully conscious of all levels of our being. So basically, everything comes in 5. So in this case, with the 5 elements and the 5 senses, we also have 5 states of awareness, or 5 sheaths that prana is flowing through. And actually, it actually takes up the whole second sheath, is Pranamaya Kosha, they call it. And preceding that is grosser to it, is Annamaya Kosha, the food sheath. That's this that you're looking at outside. But what you're looking at the body with is the Pranamaya Kosha. So you're looking at it with energy, right? If it wasn't there, you wouldn't see bodies and objects, and the physical would just be shut off to you like it is tonight in sleep. So if there is such a thing as higher consciousness, and that's what we're here to prove to ourselves in the body, then when we go to sleep, or when we go into meditation, or when we pass from the body, these are three instances in which, if the prana is mastered, you will see the inner worlds spread out inside of you. Like this beautiful sloka here out of the Prashna Upanishad. I read it last week. The prana comes into the body from the Atman by an act of mind. Whatever the mind thinks, that flows in and out via the prana, and verily leads, along with the Atman, into the desired realm. So if your prana is flowing and you're conscious of it flowing, then you're moving in and out of these three states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, in awareness. So you're seeing yourself move. You're aware of your movement in them, and you're aware of the connecting sequences in them. And this is, they call it connecting the A to the U, and then the AU to the M, and that spells Om. The word is AUM, Om. So if the three matras, that is, letters of the word, are left disconnected, waking is not connected to dream, and dream is not connecting to deep sleep, then there is just worldliness. There's just one state of awareness for you, and that's waking, and that's it. Physical is all you believe in. But if you, with the help of that prana, connect it to you, the dream state, and you see how consciousness flows on this Garuda bird of the prana, you see, it's flying, as it were. Your consciousness goes with the prana to a different level of awareness. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be fully conscious of that. It's taking your consciousness in and out of different states, and the point here is that you're aware of that and become aware of that. Sometimes when you're in dream, you can be aware of both your body laying on your bed, and also simultaneously your subtle body in dream. That happens sometimes to the practitioners. See, all of a sudden you say, "Oh, I'm dreaming, and my real body is back there on earth. That I'm here in this realm, and I'm perfectly happy. But I think I'll take a deep breath and wake up." You see, and pow, you're back in your body, just like that. Speed of lightning, faster than the speed of lightning. Mm-hmm. Faster than the speed of sound is the speed of light, and faster than the speed of light is the speed of thought. The speed of thought and this prana that helps it move from place to place is lightning swift. That might as well be Divine Mother herself, you see, Shakti power. So again, getting slowly into the subject of food, prana, and sadhana, what I'm saying here is we must become conscious of all three. You could be a chef, or you could say, "I know all about food," but I'd walk up to you and pose a few questions to you and found out you knew nothing about food. You know about varieties. Vaichitra, varieties means Maya. That's how Maya deludes us, varieties. It takes us away from the one by distraction to the many, you see. That's a very subtle trick that she pulls, as it were. If she were sentient, she would pull that on us, but it's happening to us all the time. So we need to do away with the distractions. Didn't I just say that? Be compassionate to your mind and make it one-pointed again. It'll love you for it, you see. Oh, thank you. I was getting so tired, running myself ragged, turning my wheels for nothing, you see. So be compassionate to yourself and come to one-pointedness. You need peace of mind first and foremost. And then everything else will proceed without a hitch. And if it does have a hitch in it, you'll be able to deal with it with a pure energy. See, this is just spiritual living. This is dharmic life. But at least it's a very practical, healthy life, you see. So it starts out with food, and the reason I'm saying that we don't understand food yet is that we're not really taking it consciously, and we're not really conscious of it being connected to the prana. Now, man does not live by bread alone, Christ said, and that's true. But that teaching is given just so you will lift off your consciousness from being obsessed with food, as if food were everything to you. There are other kinds of food that Christ is talking about, and this prana is one of them. People subsist on life force, and they get some of that from food, but they also get some of it from air, from breathing, and from nature, and from other souls around them. So interaction at the level of prana and psychic prana is very important. So that's why I set up this chart with 4 pillars. I had this image here and a few images, and I thought, how can I set this up so that we understand food, prana, and sadhana in a more complete way, and we can begin to use our consciousness to week to keep ourselves alive, keep ourselves fine and fettle, balanced, and not falling out ever again. They call it yoga. Use the fire of yoga to stay in yoga. See, so in fact, that fire of yoga can even be sung about if we want to start out a little musically. Anande prasabsadrote avirajan sarvadate anande ram prasadrote avirajan sarvadate nagar shiro munikoro ahuti shamamari nagar shiro munikoro pradakina shamamari ono boli bhajakali picha hoi torje achari guru data mahamantra divani shi japa kori ono boli bhajakali. Says here in this verse, the singer of this song, whom he names himself in it, Ramprasad, the singer of this song cries, "Wonderful, wonderful, the mother exists fully in every living creature." "O wandering poet," he says to himself, "whatever food or drink you receive, offer it as oblation into the sacrificial fire of your body, and meditate intensely on her encompassing reality." So he's giving his mind's instructions. He has this realization about the existence of consciousness in everywhere and everything, and he says, this is wonderful, this is wonderful. Now what do I have to do to maintain this wonderful state of mind? Is that I need to offer everything that I receive as food and drink into the oblation of the fire of the body. Then I need to meditate on her encompassing reality. See how nicely he puts it in order. So it'd have to be food first, and then offering sacredly. Brahmarpana, Brahmahabir, Brahmagna, Brahmanahutam, which is there on our wall of our ashram as a food blessing. Brahmarpana, arpana means to offer with devotion, you see. So make everything a devout offering to Brahman. Everything you do, everything you say, everything you think, everything you eat, make that a way of life, conscious, every moment, you see, consciously, every day. And if you can do this with this energy that comes from food, then you will be able to meditate intensely on her all-encompassing reality. Very nicely put, isn't it? So one of these beautiful Bengali songs to Mother Kali that beings like Kamalakanta and Ramprasad were so famous for. Now, with all of that as a warm-up, as I say, let's take an overall look at this chart, because I went through part of it last week, but I was only taking those parts that were pertinent to food. That is this first line. And I did explain to you, however, that it was based on these 4 pillars: food, prana, psychic prana, and Shakti power. Now, food, prana, and sadhana, which is the title of this class, the sadhana really starts to come in down here. You see, you get a guru, you select a mantra and so forth, and you start doing your sadhana. But a lot of people jump into that. Maybe they pick 4 or 5 gurus and a dozen mantras. Doesn't that sound like distracted mind to you? Didn't I just say be compassionate, be at peace, and just proceed very step by step by listening to what your one teacher says and meditating on the one mantra, and it's all about oneness, isn't it? So then you must be at one-ment, as they say. So these 4 pillars are there to sort of guide us in this 5-fold series of classes we're about to do. This is the second, so we've already covered this pretty much, but let's review it real quick. You must, with food, gain some strength. And we took that last week. When you gain some strength, then you must increase your stamina. Man must not live to eat, he must eat to live. My teacher used to say that, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, who was Holy Mother's direct disciple. And he was still her last living disciple till he passed away in the mid-1990s, and taught all of us. So he used to say that man must not live to eat. So you don't just eat just for pleasure, just live just to eat over and over again, like you see the birds and beasts of the fields doing. But you must eat to live. That is, take this food in a sacred way and then truly live, is what he meant. Live a life which is beneficial to yourselves and to all other beings, as the famous peace chant tells us, right? We must live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. So this is how you increase stamina. You must have a human birth. That is a very great boon. In fact, it's not here. It's on that new chart I was working on. But Holy Mother was saying, you'll probably hear this next week, but she's saying, those men and women who have come to the Master and I have not come here for fun, she said once. They know how lucky they are to have a human body, and they're here to do sadhana. She made a comment like that once, so I use that as a quote on the chart, which I'll show you next week. Not come here to have fun. So this is the idea about eating. Just eat and drink and be merry, fine. But if your consciousness isn't in it, see, if it isn't leading towards something nobler and higher, then basically you see the result of that in the world today, in the form of worldliness. If you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, you'll find out that worldliness is the chronic disease of the age, he said when he was here among us. Worldliness is the chronic disease of the age. Become chronic means it's set in. You see, it's going to be very hard to escape from, or to distance yourself from. Sort of like not drinking coffee and eating chocolate anymore, so you can get your real energy back. You see, you can have a little treat once in a while, but if it becomes habitual, then you're eating to live. You see, and you're living to eat. You see, only, but you're not eating to live. So gain strength, increase stamina. We talked about that last week, and then master your posture. If you could start your children on this at a young age, then they could sit like this all their life, then they would always have a ready supply of oxygen to your brain. But what you want them to have is a ready supply of prana to their mind. See, oxygen to the brain is one thing, that's the physical level, make for a good, fit, healthy person. But there is this thing called prana and psychic prana, and which we will see here as we move through this chart swiftly. I'm not going to take a lot of time on any one of these today until we go back and pick up where we left off, which is right here at the level of prana. We pretty much put a capper on it with food because I want to show you one more thing about food, one more chart. But basically, the psychic prana is there to consider. That is a healthy mind. And body-brain is one thing, but prana mind is another. You see, the brain is not the mind. We make a distinction between that in Vedanta. And one operates more by intelligence, that's your mind, and the other operates more by energy or food, brain and body. So this intelligence needs to be taken into account. In fact, those who discover their intelligence, they begin to believe in God. I want to put it very simply. They can't find any reason not to believe in a divine reality when their intelligence makes itself known to them. Intelligence itself is God. That's why Buddha named himself after it. Did you ever think of that? Buddha. See, the Buddhi is intelligence. So he said, whatever you may say about me, he said at the end of his life, you must know that I am awakened intelligence. So if your intelligence awakens, then you have no reason anymore to doubt divine reality. It's everywhere and everything. And the prana has been partially responsible for helping you see that, because it's also in everything. Otherwise it wouldn't be moving. But the beautiful distinction between prana and intelligence is intelligence stands still and sees itself. Prana flows and doesn't see itself quite often. If you open up your intelligence with jnanam, which is wisdom and knowledge, then all of a sudden you have a witness to every other thing in the universe. See, that's the beauty about intelligence, about the Buddha, about buddhi, is that your thoughts, citta, might be there, but what if they were invested with intelligence? Because we certainly see people thinking all the time, but their thoughts are not leading them anyway. Sometimes they're leading them in the wrong direction. So if intelligence are in your thoughts and they're beginning to raise your thoughts, then that's very important, isn't it? Let's look here for instance at the 5 pranas. The apana facilitates evacuation as well as generation. So that is getting rid of your waste and also the act of procreation. There's one prana that takes care of that. It's called apana. That's not just a toothpaste out of the 60s, by the way. That was Ipana, actually. Remember that old commercial?
Yeah.
Some of you? Yeah. Ipana. What happened to that toothpaste? But this is apana.
Not enough prana.
Not enough prana in that Ipana. It died. Then samana distributes all the offered food. We just sang beautifully from Ram Prasad. Offer everything into the fire of your body. You're going to have to be aware that the samana is operating and is doing that for you. You're conscious of that. Prana itself, that is, there are 5 forms of prana, and prana is one of them, operates and fills the senses. That's what you see, your eyes see, your ears hear, your tongue tastes, because this prana is there in the senses. And it evacuates them at the time of sleep. So if you want to prove it to yourself, just see how your 5 senses go away when you fall asleep. The prana is not there anymore. It moves inward. And it starts to operate 5 subtle senses inside of you. Thoughts of seeing, thoughts of hearing, thoughts of tasting. You have those in a dream. This is another echelon of your consciousness. You can't just disregard it as a figment of your imagination, when seers for thousands of years have actually been connecting to it and waking up in their dreams and having profound dream experiences, ecstatic living dream experiences. If you have a few of those yourself, then you'll begin to weep a lot. Yeah, that's true. at first, but you'll also begin to understand the all-pervasive nature of awareness and how it's eternal. And then, through the main nadi, the udana carries the soul back and forth between various worlds. That's important. Fourth prana is called udana. That's a upward moving prana, as it were. And you can see it there in your in-breath. That's the prana that's operating your in-breath. And then out-breath would be operated by the apana, right? So you have these, you have to be aware of these. There's a suspended breath too that holds. That's the all-pervasive prana. But this inward moving breath is also, in your subtle body, upward moving thought. See? So the yogis like to get a hold of that udana and ride it, you see. They ride it inwards and upwards to much higher levels of awareness. And with the swiftness of thought, like I said, faster than light, they can move about all the universes in space and time, all the inner worlds, the kingdoms of heaven within, all the chambers of the Father's mansion. They can move about those in the swiftest possible way if they have this udana mastered. See, this fourth prana. Very important for spiritual life because it connects mainly to the mind. Then finally, this Prajnopanishad says, Vyana pervades and moves through the many thousands of gross and subtle nerves. That's the all-pervasive prana. It's called Vyana. So there's got to be a prana that's the basis for all the others. And it's actually very much, if you come upon it and consider it and see it present, it's very much like consciousness. Consciousness too is all-pervasive, right? Sort of like air is everywhere, right? But ether is more subtle than air. You can displace air, but you can't displace ether. So the air lies on the ether, as it were. Just like that, these koshas, or these subtle bodies, lie on subtler bodies. And that's how consciousness marched out of its origin, out of its source, and how it can get back in. We know a lot about evolution, but we don't know anything about involution. We've been left in a lurch out here. And now we're just physical bodies that face death, and that's it. See, that's our ideology. But the yogis, the rishis, the seers consider that insanity when you're having inward experiences all the time. Certainly they are. And we are too, but we're just not accounting for them. We have to connect the prana to our inner states, you see, and provide for it. So along the way of this ladder, you might say, or this inward ascension, this prana is becoming evident already. You may not know about it yet in food and strength and stamina and posture, but it becomes evident that that's what you're headed for. It's really this limb of yoga, you see, fourth limb of yoga. You do your practices and exercises first, then you master the posture, and then you get breathing, right? And you do your pranayama. So that's the fourth limb of yoga. So we can show that in a bit. Take a quick look at it. It's just for people who want to recall it. But back here on our main chart, and I wanted to mention again that manaha prana sambandha is a very wonderful Sanskrit word. Another one of those 7 or 8 syllable Sanskrit words, you see, and it really means connecting the living prana to the luminous mind, if you were to take it at its highest level. How to connect this prana to the mind. It's a stage we need to account for. I'm assuming that most practitioners of yoga already know about food, I hope. So they're taking into account eating organically and eating vegetarian and eating consciously if they do eat other than vegetarian. The more important aspects of food, which we can get to on another chart here when we introduce this one. So master the posture. Then once you do that, you want to purify the senses. And here's again where you see this prana is beginning to take hold, because the senses are restless because the prana is restless in them. And it's very hard to speak about a chronological method here, because you really should be starting here. You should be starting here. In the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad, it is stated in the Kundalini system is that if you go to a Kundalini teacher, they'll start you out here. You need to master your prana first, they say. It comes before this. So if you get your prana together, this will all be easy. But if otherwise, you're going to encounter some very potentially devastating blocks along the way if the prana isn't flowing already. So most yogis, yoga teachers, that is 8-limbed yoga teachers, want you to master the prana first. And if you can do that, of course, if you're an already illumined soul, you've mastered the mind and long ago, so the prana's already mastered and the body's already mastered. You can get in and out of the body consciously, like, say, Dalai Lama has done for 14 times, and so forth, in this day and age even. There you have illumined souls who are coming back as themselves all the time, as Buddha nature. And that's a very powerful connection, isn't it, to consciousness, to be able to do all of that consciously and remember your past lives. So that's something that's already been accomplished for them. So we're not talking about those souls. We're talking about a person who needs to get a hold of their life force. And if they do, it'll move both ways, back to food and onward to mental energy, to facile mind, to awakened intelligence. So this really might be the second pillar, but you could start there and just watch its invigorating and healthy energy spread both ways in you. I want to make that point so that we don't get too oriented towards a linear kind of movement always. That there are ways in which you can awaken at a higher level and watch the profound benefits happen at the basic levels. When sometimes you're trying to work at the basic levels and it's limiting them. You're being limited to those very things that you're trying to work against. So be aware of that kind of spontaneity that's possible for the soul. So purifying the senses and equalizing the breath, a big connection there, because if you can arrive at some equal in-breath, equal out-breath, and equal held breath, like the exercises you can do when you're breathing, to even out your breath. Don't overdo them too much. A few minutes of it each day is enough to get the prana moving again, as if you keep it up day to day. There'll be a time when you won't need to do breathing exercises anymore. Just like there'll become a time when you don't need to do any asanas anymore, you pretty much settle into ekasana, this one. This is the whole point of yoga, is to get back into union. So you're using these mechanisms along the way to put you in this single posture, with this single breath, with this single mind, to get to the singular Brahman. You see, in yoga is one, you see. So the whole thing has to be understood in terms of the indivisible nature that is already pure and perfect. And you're working with these mechanisms where your consciousness is associated with them that aren't pure and perfect. It's actually a very depressing thing for most people. They find out the imperfections in them, and they can really undo them. Mentally, physically, and energetically, they can just become undone. Oh, these are impure. They're imperfect. They'll never be helpful to me. See, that's why the whole purpose of spirituality is transcendence, and they don't have the wherewithal yet to assume a perspective of transcendence yet. It's not given to them yet. So they have to have patience and perseverance, strength, stamina. All those things are going to be very important to the process so that you don't fall out of yoga. So many people falling out of it once they take it up, or stopping short at asana and so forth, and never going any further. But that's not the father of yoga's intention for you, Patanjali. He was a holistic healer on all levels of your being. Sure, he provided for the rasas and the dhatus and the karnas, your bodily fluids and your fluid essences and all that. But he also led you immediately to the causes of these things, the karanas. And from there, then you started to practice yoga, seeking the causes of not only the problems and blocks in you, but the causes of the beauty and the benefit, the awareness that's in you, the cause of that too. So you will purify your senses and equalize your breathing. There's something to practice every day then. You don't really need to sit like this and do it. If you're walking across a field, just stop and breathe. If you're in the office, stop and breathe. Working somewhere, stop and breathe. Equal out your breath, because one of two other things are happening to you if you don't. You're either not breathing, which in that case is not good. There's a good form of not breathing that comes later called kumbhaka. It's a conscious not breathing. Or you're breathing erratically, uneven. You're excited, you're restless, and so forth. So it depends on which guna is in your mind, tamas or rajas. If tamas is predominant, then you're probably not breathing. If rajas is predominant, you're breathing excitedly or erratically. In all those two cases, then the third option is balance, sattva. So wherever you are, at work, outside, or sitting in your practice, equalize your breathing first. Take a few even breaths. You can even count. As you breathe in, count 8 times. Then if you actually count held breath for 8 counts, and then you breathe out for 8 counts, then that's called evening out the puraka, kumbhaka, and retraka breathing process in yoga. And you do a few of those, and all of a sudden you will feel your energy coming back. You will feel your consciousness awakening. It's easy to fall out of awareness of your own consciousness. But the breathing process is a way of readily and quickly and swiftly moving you back towards control of yourself again, control of your senses. The Holy Mother used to say that about japa. You see, it's along the line here. Select a mantra and do japa, right? He said, basically, what is japa for? To purify your senses, to control your senses. So this is why this is put in this order. People come to purify their senses, and they see that they're not pure yet. They're roving. See? There's a chariot called the mind, and it's hooked to 5 horses. And each one of those wants to take a different road, the song says. See? Hearing wants to go one way, seeing another, tasting another. But there's this reins hooked to all 5 horses back to the chariot of the mind, the willpower. And that's called prana. Those are 5 reins that are holding on to each one of those. You've let a few of them go, and the chariot's about to tip over, run off a cliff, see? So you have, with all 5 of those reins, you draw it back. That's the methodology. It's also the visualization that you hold on to in meditation. So in a sense, prana and senses are neither really pure or impure on their own, you see. It's not like you can say, oh, my senses are bad today, my senses are good, were good yesterday, you see. Good eye, nice, oh, bad eye. It's more that the prana flowing through them, is causing them to see better or worse. Of course, with old age and death, decay and so forth, those are things that are going to overtake everyone in the body. So that's why the psychic prana is important, because you want to have perfect inner seeing. Right? When your outer seeing gives out, don't you want to have perfect inner seeing? Mm-hmm. When you can't hear anymore, don't you want to still hear the hymns inside of you, the slokas inside of you, the voice of your guru inside of you? the voice of God, the sound of Om. Don't you still want to hear those things when these shut off? You see, so this isn't just for becoming a healthy animal. Again, animalistic living is outside only. See, but you're beyond the animals. You're a human being that got a human body, and you want to proceed to use it in the noblest way. To escape the wheel of birth and death, and to escape any possible digression you might make. I have one person writing me from Canada over the last week who's a farmer and works with animals all the time, and wants to know about animals and why they suffer, and what kind if there's a soul there, and so forth. So we've gone back and forth with some very long emails about that. And she believes there are souls in these animals and so forth, and that they could become human, and that humans can become animals too. She sees how some of these animals have so many human characteristics. So it's an interesting thing to consider and think about. Transmigration of species, and from birth to death and death to birth. But if we're considering this at the level of practitioners here, then we shouldn't be concerned about regressing to an animal form. We should be more concerned about inspiring ourselves to take on higher and higher forms. That is, the forms of the seers and the rishis and the yogis. We must become enlightened souls ourselves. And that's going to be the best thing we can do for ourselves and for others. The greatest compassion for everyone involved. Jnanodaya Yoga would be gaining enlightenment. So this is what we talked about pretty much last week. Now here you see prana, you arrive at a sort of understanding of prana. If you've done it through this method, then good for you. It's been something that a trail that you've reblazed. You probably have blazed it before, but you've gone in there with a machete and you've reblazed that trail, and you're arriving at the idea of prana. Now here is where you need to purify, control, and raise the prana. The breathing exercises, again, gave you a sort of beginning to that. Sometimes people do breathing exercises and they start to feel dizzy, and they think, oh, that must be samadhi, I must have reached the goal, as if it were all that easy. But after feeling there is a little bit of stirring of what they call udgata. The Shakti is still waiting to awaken in you. She's waiting for you. She's the most conscious energy possible. And she's an internal verity. She's very deep within you. And yes, she's there in everything, but she's there in food mainly as prana. So if you awaken the prana and you're heading towards waking the prana in your mind, that's going to be more connected with your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state in your meditations and the movement of your soul at the time of birth and death. This is where this becomes important. So you can see along the way here that you're going to have to purify, control, and then begin to work on raising that prana. As you are really headed inward to the kingdoms of heaven within you as you live in the physical body. And this is why eternal life begins to open up to the seers, to the yogis, and to the rishis, because they're having these inner experiences that come. They're beginning to head toward the mastery of the psychic prana. There are some significant problems to encounter on the way to the psychic prana. One of them is called the attachment to the occult powers. You begin to get these strange powers that attend upon you. And if you haven't done this kind of purification prior to that, then you can get misled by these occult powers. And things like levitation and domination over others, and gaining pleasures, bizarre pleasures and so forth, as many as you want. There are 8 of these occult powers that are going on. So you want to check those all the time and move past the psychic prana, use it to go deeper towards Divine Mother power, Shakti herself. Awaken the Shakti in you. That's more like Kundalini. Now you're talking about a very well-known and powerful entity that is being acknowledged by illumined souls who are telling you, move inward, move onward, go forward, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say to his disciples. Now, you see a big turning point here would be to frequent holy company. That's a very important, there's even ways of singing about it. Like, Kate Kanta Dhanagata Chinta Vatula Kim Tavanasti Niyanta Trijagati Sajati Sagati Reka Avati Pavarnavatarane Nauka Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Mudamate Samprapte Sanihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrin Karane. The beautiful hymn Bhaja Govindam by Shankaracharya. So this is written by Padmapada, one of his devotees added this verse to this. It says, "Why worry about others, O crazy mind?" He starts out, "Does not the Lord ordain everything without exception? In these three worlds, it is only association with the holy that is most worthy, and provides the boat to carry you across the ocean of birth and death." So it's only holy company that is worthy and provides that boat to carry you across the sea of samsara. So he sings that beautiful song, like Sat Sangatve Nirmohatvam Nirmohatve Nischalitatvam Nischalitatvam Jivan Mukti. All of that is also about freedom from delusion by holy company. Through holy company you'll get resolve. Through resolve you'll get freedom in this life. See? So all of that is almost a summation of what we're talking about here in this first half of this square that this path we're following in four pillars. So reaching towards the pillar of psychic prana from the pillar of healthy prana, mukhya prana you can call it, that's right in the middle is this holy company. Other beautiful songs come to my mind about that, about Samo and Damo and Upariti and Tatiksha and this inn of holy company that you arrive at. And you have to be careful of the robbers on the road to life, you see. And always frequent this inn called Holy Company where you'll be saved. Beautiful songs like that are there in our tradition that explain these to us in inspiring and musical ways as well. So frequent holy company is something we can look at more next week. Holy company probably will be penultimate then to selecting a spiritual preceptor. You want to have a teacher who is a kamahata, free of desires, except that you get enlightenment. The only desire left, that guru will want you to get enlightenment that intensely, see, to join him or her in that bliss of enlightenment. And you want a teacher that's stotriya. You want to means knows the essence of the scriptures, and you want a teacher that's brijana. That means lives a pure and stainless life, unostentatious life, simple life. See? And you want a teacher that's Brahmavid, and knows Brahman exists and lives in Brahman. So those are the four qualifications for selecting a guru that most of us in the West never knew in the 50s and 60s, 70s. We didn't have those four qualifications taught to us first before all of these various teachers came on the scene, some of them not so noble. And in fact, very few really high authentic ones, like Vivekananda in 1893 came to us as the most authentic and left a powerful pillar here for us, speaking of pillars, ourselves to follow. In fact, we often sing to him about those kinds of things too, if you're talking musically. this beautiful verse out of his Pranjalihi Stotram. Arindras chestitai kalagyo gayanai parigyan arbudo maharshi darshanai yatrindro shakti bir bhavanyam nastikim viveka nandate prabhate pranjalihi Narendra Shashave, Narendra Yovane, Narendra Kridane, Narendra Shikshane, Narendra Palane, Narendra Yarpane, Viveka Nandate, Prabhate Pranjali. Darshita Bihamsam Davanai. And it goes on and on like that, rolling on and on into the inner realms where Swami Vivekananda himself sits there like a statue for 700 years at a time in the deepest samadhi, waiting for you to come and see him. You just get your strength together, increase your stamina, master your posture, purify your senses, equalize your breathing, purify your prana, and just move towards him. That's called Ishvara, right? You begin to worship. And that particular verse, I thought of it as we arrived here at Holy Company and Select Guru, says, Hail Vivekananda, all excellences abide in thee. Your heroic actions remind us of Hanuman. Your unrivaled detachment marks you as a supreme renunciate. Your music and poetry blend artistry with heartfelt devotion. Your infinite wisdom reflects the state of a Vijnani. Profound inner visions mark you as a great rishi. Salutations to you. In this dawn of eternal enlightenment, salutations to thee, salutations to thee. So those 5 things, a verse. All those things we can use to earmark Vivekananda and see, like those 4 great qualifications, what a completely apt, more than adequate teacher we have in such a soul like that to guide humanity on a collective level, not just on an individual level. Oh, that's why Holy Mother used to say that. He sits like a statue 700 years at a time in highest samadhi. It's only a Ramakrishna that can talk him out of that samadhi and bring him down to earth. Only a beautiful child like Ramakrishna could talk him out of that formless samadhi and make him take a form. See? There's songs written about that too. So, something that occurs as we begin to take up the subjects of prana and psychic prana, that basically frequent holy company and you'll get that deep inner yearning for a teacher who can clear things up for you. Best thing a teacher can do is clarification and intensification. Clear your issues, then he'll help you intensify your sadhana. Food, prana, sadhana, right? That's what the name of this class is all about. When you intensify your sadhana, then you will become like him. I and my Father are one. You will become like the realized soul that you are. What's keeping you from it? See? Now, along with Selected Guru is secure a mantra. One of the things you're going to ask of the Guru is for initiation. So, tad vidhi pranipatena pariprasjena sevaya upadekshanti te jnana jnaninas tattva darshinaha is how Krishna puts it in the Gita. He says, approach the holy company with humility, prostration, and service, and then they'll initiate you into the highest wisdom. Tattva darshanaha. They'll initiate you into the great tattva of darshan. See? And then they'll give you that mantra. See? So the mantra is a very precious thing. If you did nothing else in your whole life but used the mantra, you'd be fine. That's how powerful the mantra is. It's a purificatory instrument of the highest level, at the highest level of purification. It's much beyond using the prana to purify the senses. Like I said, if you had the prana, you'd know that the mantra was infused with prana, and psychic prana particularly, that it has seeds and bijams in it. AUM, for instance, we were just talking about, right? How important the three bijam, that bijam of Om is with its three mantras, how to connect them, and how that flushes out, fills out the whole ideology of Vedic thinking. See, is that great word. Tantric too. Tantra and Vedanta share the same love of the word Om. And so does yoga, by the way. Now that should be penultimate steps that help you arrive at psychic prana. Now once psychic prana is yours and you've avoided things like the occult powers and you're really very much set on the path, your feet are set firmly on the path to enlightenment, as we say in SRV, then there's some certain things that are going to proceed, and this is where sadhana kicks in, basically. Before then, you haven't really been doing much of a sadhana. You've done some breathing exercises, you've done some asana. That's not really a complete sadhana. Sadhana has to do with psychic prana and shakti and specific practices that are in line with the four yogas. Four yogas are, Hatha yoga is not one of them. It's just a very small portion of the route along the way. The four yogas are worship, study of scripture, meditation, and action. Right action, basically, if you want to put it simply. So you start with that fourfold covering. You see that cover all. You see, all aspects of your life are being checked now, and you've got the energy to flow. You see, along all four of those avenues. So you start doing things like conducting worship. We'll look at this next week with that chart that I promised you on Holy Mother, her teachings. And conduct worship is very important. You would, for instance, keep an altar in the shrine room. You'd wave incense and offer flowers every day, maybe several times a day. And you'd chant there. You'd sing bhajans to the Lord. You and the Lord would sit and sing if you didn't have any friends with you. And you would be doing these as devotional exercises. These are part of your sadhana. That's the bhakti side of your sadhana that you're doing there. You contemplate scripture, probably right in that very shrine room, or somewhere close by or in a consecrated place. You'd be sitting like this with your scripture, reading, thinking, and then eventually not thinking. But these great slokas or sutras that are inspiring you and that are being explained to you by your guru, because you're going to holy company still. See, you haven't gotten past that yet. You're moving on, but you've attained these great 8 great accomplishments, they call it. One of them is getting a guru. It's one of the great 8 accomplishments of life, according to spiritual Lord Kapula's system, Samkhya Yoga. So you've attained that, so now you're checking those teachings that you're getting with your preceptor, and then thinking about them. Pretty soon the thoughts become so rarefied that it begins to take you beyond the mind's thoughts. You begin to have higher experiences. You're visiting a higher ether, very rarefied ether, where great thoughts give way to rarefied air of heights. See, it's not any more congealing as a thought or a series of thoughts. It's just being, it's just feeling very elevated in your mind all the time. It's blissful. That's where bliss starts to come in, ananda. Or subtle bliss at least. Ananda, it may be still to come, but you're getting subtle bliss, and you tend to vibrate right at that level all the time. It's the peace that passes all understanding, and you just like to be there, see. And you may come down out of it to consider, to fuel it more, you see. Oh, I feel like worship today. Oh, I feel like reading the Gita today. See, and that fuels you again, getting into these higher states. So again, these aren't things that you throw away after you've attained them. See, they're accretion. You see, you're adding them on all the time to an already full arsenal of divine weapons that are destroying all these problems that may come in your way still in spiritual life. Subtler and subtler problems, impediments. It's like getting from the third chakra to the fourth, getting past that knot there that's sending you back as your ancestors, back in a Kala chakra, getting beyond that third chakra to the fourth chakra and transcending the need to be reborn again with your ancestors is a subtle barrier or problem for people who are trying to awaken that heart chakra. And this combination of bhakti and jnanam, the two wings of the bird, my guru used to call them, wisdom and devotion, are what's going to help you penetrate through that grunty of ancestor worship and so forth, getting beyond. You're not worshipping your ancestors anymore, so you're not going to come back as your ancestors. You're worshipping the gods and goddesses, or you're worshipping your Ishtam, better yet. You're worshipping the highest form of God. And therefore, you've opened up higher levels of your awareness. Heart chakra, anahata, is really another word for Om. So that's where you've really awakened to the word and its deeper significance there at your heart. Humming right there like 1,000 bumblebees, they say. And that'll give you bliss too when you hear that. That also equates to bliss. Light and bliss, Jyoti and Ananda, are there for you. With this psychic prana then also comes this ability of self-surrender. Several different things I could have used there, like ripe ego and so forth, but the idea is that that the ego, which was at one time one of those barriers, that subtle barriers that you had to encounter, that you kept bouncing back from, the Anandamaya Kosha, you couldn't get over the ego. The ego at this level is attachment to bliss. This is one of the four impediments to yoga. First is sleepiness. It's the first impediment to yoga. You have to get over sleepiness, right? That's why you have learned to breathe, you see. So now you're coming into an ever awake state because the pranas, these 5 pranas, are all operating as one prana now. Not only each is functioning itself, but they're all connected to each other, and now they're one prana in 5 forms. So this is helping you to stay awake in the deeper sense of the term. You'll never fall asleep again. There are songs written about it. A man has come to me from a land that never sleeps. Now all my dreams have been turned into radiant meditations. What do you think happened to the man who wrote those lyrics, you see? Did he just think them up randomly out of nowhere? Or was he practicing and all of a sudden he realized, my guru came to me from a land that never sleeps. I just saw that. I just realized I don't sleep anymore. I'm ever awake. I have the insomnia of yoga. It's upon me, you see. These things occur to the seeker at higher levels, and then they acknowledge them, see. And there's no reason to fall asleep evermore in Maya. I mean, you can fall asleep, your body can sleep and rest, but your mind will never fall asleep in Maya again. You're through with it. You'll never want to go back, and there's no need to go back. So this is a way of speaking. So really here, the ego now is not having a problem with pride and arrogance and those kinds of things. That happened way earlier. Right now it's having a problem with bliss. It's having a problem with bliss. It can't move past its own bliss. It can't reach its Brahman because of its bliss is keeping it from it. Brahman is the infinite storehouse of that bliss, but it's got its own little bliss, you see. And it's hunkered down around that, just like it was hunkered down around food in the body earlier. So it's just, stepped up with the same kind of attachment problem. And that is the second and third impediment to yoga that I just mentioned, attachment and aversion. So you take sleepiness and attachment and aversion with you as you move along, and they become less and less gross and more subtle. Until finally you find them in their causal form as the three gunas at the beginning of creation. You see, those very things now are in your causal body too. So you're not getting rid of them. You're just refining them as you go along, just like you refined everything here as you made your inward journey of spiritual life. You set your foot on the path, found a teacher and a mantra and started practicing. It's all happening, maybe not in such a perfect order like that, like I say, but it is happening to you, and sometimes you're making huge strides, and those huge strides are leaving gaps, and then you're filling in gaps later, you see, and it's making you have realizations. Usually when you have a profound realization or a profound dream, it's just filling in a gap you left. Oh, now I understand, you see. Oh, I was practicing all this time and I never knew that God had a form. See? All of a sudden somebody comes to me in a dream, some great rishi or some great teacher. Wow, see, God has a form. I can worship that form. And worship wasn't a part of your sadhana up until that point. And the same thing can happen to people who are very devout. All of a sudden they realize some being tells them some great teaching, and it just fills in a gap for them, and all of a sudden they appreciate the beauty of jnanam. See? As Krishna says in the Gita, nahi jnanena sudrishyam pavitram iha vidyate. There's no purifier in the world like jnanam, like wisdom. See? So there were purifiers back here for your body and your senses and for your prana, but when you're getting here, you're finding the greatest purifier of all is jnanam. Because it's making everything that preceded that okay. See? And it's also okay to give it up. See? It's also okay not to return to it anymore. I purified the prana so that I don't have to have a pair of lungs anymore. See? Why do I want to come back and purify the prana all over again in another body? That's that kind of no breath I'm talking about that's a beneficial not breathing, right? You reach kumbhaka in meditation, you don't breathe anymore. I practice that kind of breathing in Calcutta. Whenever I visit there, it's called not breathing.
Yeah.
And if you've done it spiritually, you can do it physically, just every minute or so. And then stay without a breath again for another minute. So it comes in very handy at all levels. So a little bit more than usual about surrender to self. See, it becomes something that is a very beautiful offering. It's like Brahmarpanam with food, but now it's Brahmarpanam, and then with prana, but now it's Brahmarpanam with your ego. See. And it needs to get over this problem of attachment to bliss. So it comes back to the world, see, and it begins to work. And it performs work as worship now, whereas work before was drudgery, or work before was practical, or work before was for storing up for the future, or all other problems that attend upon work, not quite satisfying. Now you're doing it as worship, or sometimes they call that labor as love. Those were two phrases that Vivekananda coined for us when he was here in the late 1800s. Work as worship, labor as love. So that's the kind of idea, and that's that fourth yoga, right? Now you are running along the path of the four yogas. So now action becomes a very important part of that. That's a filling in of a gap. I mean, you may have gotten very high spiritually minded, but you still have this feeling like you never accomplished anything on the level of action that you wanted to do. Well, now go back and do it, you see. without any impediments in the way and be fulfilled. I mean, this is happening to people all the time, but fulfillment comes later, after they get spiritual life, because it can't come without it, really. It always leaves you feeling a little bit amiss or something's lacking. Even with money and success, you still feel like there's some problem with work, you see. Attachments or wanting more or whatever it is, desire. But now go back with this new energy that you've gained with the psychic prana and fulfill yourself on the level of the world. Work is worship. Get fulfilled once for all with that. Basically, if you wanted to say how Vivekananda put it, is first action to get knowledge. And once you have knowledge, then you don't work anymore. In other words, everything becomes worship. You see Brahman in everything. So he said if work doesn't end in knowledge, then something was wrong in the way you were working. That's the only efficacy for work, he says, is knowledge. It's the only reason to work, is to get knowledge. There is no other reason. He was very pronounced about that, because he saw enough times how people were working themselves to death, literally, and coming back again and doing the same thing. Krishna says so in the Gita. Those who are born in Rajas die in Rajas. They're born in the wombs of the restless, they die and are reborn again in the next time in the wombs of the restless. Those who have tamas fall, those who have rajas circle, those who have sattvas rise. Beautiful teaching in the Bhagavad Gita. This great soul standing back and saying, yeah, I see the world process. Those people are falling, these people are staying in the same place circling, and these people are going on. See, they got free, they began to work with worshipful spirit. See, they're karma yoga. They've mastered karma yoga. Very possible that you might master that first, and the other three yogas are rather unknown to you. Like was the case with someone I know. See, who was a great karma yogini, but didn't really know the jnana yet, and didn't really have the bhakti yet. And once the karma was mastered, then all of a sudden doors opened for jnanam and bhakti, wisdom and devotion to come in. So they had to get this mastery of work first. You see. So it happens in all sorts of different ways to different peoples. You know, you might say according to the reading of their soul and their karma. See, the tag that's on their soul when they're born. You could just like on a shirt. You see, just take it. Oh, this person needs to do this and that and that. You see. Then they'll not need to be born anymore. Certainly not in ignorance, and certainly not just to work in rounds. See. Ask the slaves at the site of the pyramids in Egypt if it was any fun to work all the time with no recompense. Thousands of souls have suffered that level of drudgery. Now, here we approach Mother, right? And this whole first half, besides the preamble, has been given to prana, food prana, and psychic prana. And these are just touching. On the next three classes, I'm going to fill these in. Speak about filling in gaps. So we're just making a quick round through this main chart on the second class here. And so let's take up Shakti after the break. We have to break now. And that's, of course, where things are really getting good, as they say, when you meet the Divine Mother of your soul, the darling of your soul, and she reveals herself to you in ways that you would have never have expected, not just as a form, but as a divine energy itself, called Shakti, and then the Mahashakti, whom she is, the great primordial goddess. So we'll touch a little bit on that after the break. Thank you for your kind attentions. Om Tach Nayo, Om Tach Nayo Ravrini Mahe, Gatong Yagyaya, Gatong Ye Nupataye, Daivi Svastarastu Naha, Svastir Manusebhyaha, Urdhvam Chigatu Besajam Sangnawastu Dvipade Sangchatushpate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a complete offering into the Great Self. May we always delight in this offering. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace be unto the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity then also abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.
Vaishnavamscha Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Shri Mada Shri Gadada Ramakrishna Sharada Sita Shri Ramachandra Vandeham Shri Pada Kamala Shri Guru Shri Guru Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha